Good afternoon, friends. I hope this finds you healthy, happy, excited for the weekend, and just giddy as heck that it's Friday, man. It's Friday. We have a birthday this weekend in the house, so definitely festivities are planned. We're in the compression today. Just want to quickly explain that. I found out after I was in a couple of car accidents, involved in a couple of car accidents, and I found out that what I've lived with for most of my life is now called cumulative brain trauma. Fancy way to say that I've been smucked in the head and knocked out cold a few times. I guess, and I found this out through my medical history, I had fallen off a large privacy fence, like an 8-foot privacy fence, and I was a kid and was knocked out cold. Don't remember a lot of that, but it's all pretty well documented, I guess. After that, I'm 6'4", as I've said before, so I've smacked my head a few times. I've been knocked out a couple of times, once on the production line at a job that I had, and just those cumulative events kind of eventually caught up with me. So the compression helps a lot, and after the back thing on Tuesday, and that kind of sticking with me over the last couple of days, I've been in the compression for a while and using it effectively. Highly recommend. So that noted, here we are, step 5. I'm sorry if I'm laughing, but yesterday I had my stuffies out because I was emphasizing you shouldn't be doing step 4 alone, and step 5 is the reality that you actually have to talk about all that stuff you wrote down. So here you've surrounded yourself with all these people to get step 4 done, if you've taken any of my direction at least, and now you have to pick somebody to talk to about it, and for a lot of us that is not an easy chore by any stretch of the imagination. So let me give you a little bit of my background. I don't want to sound boastful or braggadocious, but I've come to find that obviously I've become fairly comfortable being able to articulate my thoughts and ideas. I speak fairly well. I can be fairly eloquent at times. It's something that I'm comfortable doing. Make no mistake, it's not something I enjoy doing. I had some testing done a number of years ago. Myers-Briggs, you may or may not be familiar with it. Highly suggest you look into it. Just because of the things that I've experienced in my time, Myers-Briggs became a real opportunity for me to answer a lot of questions. So I jumped at the opportunity. And I've come to find out since that I'm a very introverted person, and it speaks very much to my day-to-day regimen. I would sooner choose a quiet room, a video game controller, and just that quiet space to myself where I don't have to say a word to anybody. I would choose that over just about anything. I'm not a social butterfly. I do have the ability to rise to the occasion in those situations. Socially, I can schmooze with the best of them. I can recognize opportunities to rub elbows and articulate my thoughts and kind of connect some dots where they need to be connected. But again, it's something I almost physically have to choose to do, and I can do that well. It's certainly, again, not something I enjoy doing. So the proposition of writing all of this stuff down and then having to share it with another person was brutal for me. When I did step 4, I can look back now and I can recognize that my own efforts to get my step 4 done the first time I did it were very much efforts to prolong step 5. Again, and when you consider my history, I've spoken about it before, I'm 3rd generation, second recovery. I knew step 5 was looming on the horizon as I was doing step 4. And the way I approached step 4 was very much as described in the 12 and 12, picking the stranger, picking like a complete stranger. I had to do it that way. It was something that I personally couldn't avoid. It was the only way I could really approach it truthfully. So as I was doing my step 4, it was very much, I described it as kind of like a public event. Anybody who knew me at the time, anybody who was familiar with me, anybody who was in my little sober buddy circle, I was very vocal about it. I was very much, bringing those notes along with me kind of everywhere I went. And, the meetings that I was frequenting at the time, there was a couple of people I spoke to who in that moment were complete strangers and eventually became very dear friends. But in that moment, they're complete strangers. There was also a person who I knew from my home group, who I considered a sponsor, that was working closely with me, as well as a third very dear friend who was kind of working alongside of me, and I was sharing these notes with this small group of people, and I did that mostly to have the accountability available to me in real time. And that's what I gained from it. I was very much held accountable, and that benefited me in step 4. Again, I believe now when I look back that putting that much effort and energy into step 4, while at the time I would have told you I was trying to do a thorough and fearless moral inventory, I was certainly putting off step 5. We're directed in the 12 and 12 and certainly around the tables to be very careful about who we pick for our step 5. Quite often it's a family doctor, a member of the clergy, something like that. In my case, I picked a close friend who was also happened to be a member of the clergy, and that was just kind of the way I approached it. What we learn in step 5, in my experience, is nothing short of the human experience. And I've made a couple of talking points here, not as many as I have in the past, but I just kind of want to hit them if I can real quickly, just to kind of keep the conversation going. The first one being page 58, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 58 on step 5. And we go about halfway down the page, and it begins. To those who have made progress in AA, it amounts to a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. Therefore, our first practical move toward humility must consist of recognizing our deficiencies. No defect can be corrected unless we clearly see what it is. But we shall have to do more than see. The objective look at ourselves we achieved in step 4 was, after all, only a look. All of us saw, for example, that we lacked honesty and tolerance, that we were beset at times by attacks of self-pity or delusions of personal grandeur. But while this was a humiliating experience, it didn't necessarily mean that we had yet acquired much actual humility. Though now recognized, our defects were still there. Something had to be done about them, and we soon found that we could not wish or will them away by ourselves. I think that's kind of the defining moment between step 4 and step 5. Step 4, we get a chance to really look. And if we're doing it the right way, and we're doing it for the right reasons, we're really getting a look. We're getting a chance to kind of see, okay, yeah, I can be a bit of a boastful SOB. I can be a bit of a boo-hooing, crying, whining drunk, and it's embarrassing, right? I can be a little bit loose with my sense of self-respect when it comes to, punching a few drinks into me. And it's beyond embarrassing to consider that. Step 5 is kind of the the moment where we bring that out and we get to hear ourselves vocalize it. And a couple of other talking points I've made here I'll read, and I'm paraphrasing again from the 12 and 12. Until we sit down and speak aloud with another human being, our willingness to clean house and start anew is still largely theoretical. And it really is. I mean, up until this moment, there's a lot of talk and there's a lot of conversation around the tables or with our sponsors. And we're writing these things down. Until we get to those meat and potatoes and bring them out into the open air and we hear ourselves vocalize that, we're definitely doing a lot of talking, but not a lot of action. And putting ourselves in that vulnerable moment with another human being is action time. I also go on to write here, and again, I'm kind of paraphrasing, when we make that internal argument with ourselves about, do I really have to talk to somebody about this stuff? Do I really have to bring it out into the open? Do I have to share these things with people? This is one that I pulled from the 12 and 12, and I've paraphrased it, but I think it's important to consider. What comes to us in the quiet when we're alone is largely garbled by justification, rationalization, and wishful thinking. The benefit of sharing with another human being is that we get in real time that person's initial reaction to the words we're saying, their comment and their counsel. And it's for this reason that we're encouraged to be very, very careful and very thoughtful and very diligent about the people we choose to share these things with. And I'll go on to say that quite often when we're in this place in our recovery, the things we're writing down, the moments that we're discussing, the things that we bring into step 4 and to step 5 are those things that can destroy somebody else's relationship. They can destroy a marriage. They're things that may be left over from our past that may subject us to legal action. There's a lot of wreckage in our past that we have to deal with, but we certainly have to deal with it, and we have to do that head on, and that's kind of where some of the fearlessness comes in. I like to share this story when I'm talking about step 5. And I think maybe I'll wrap it up on this story. I was full of shit. Excuse my bluntness, but I was full of shit when I was getting sober. When I was practicing, I was full of shit. I was a bullshitter par excellence. As I spoke in yesterday's video, I lied about my grade 12 and had myself convinced that I deserve a job from Chrysler Canada, even though I didn't meet their most basic requirement. That's how full of shit I was. I believed my own BS. I was probably about 8 or 9 months sober, and I had lost it. Once again, having one of these days, there was a lot of change happening at that time. The person who we were renting our house from had sold the house, so then we had to find a new place to live. We were living in this place on Queen Street, and it was mouse infested, and I didn't have a lot of money, so I was recycling mouse traps, and I was working a couple of part-time jobs, and I'm sitting here and I sound to myself like I'm making a lot of excuses, but I'm not. I'm just kind of painting the picture and giving you the facts at the time. And I had lost my mind one day. I had come to the end of my ropes, and I was just losing my shit. And unfortunately, one of my children kind of ended up in the crosshairs, and verbally I just went off. And I mean, what 4 or 5-year-old kid deserves to hear that kind of garbage from an adult? None. And I make no excuses for it, but I was ridden, just guilt-ridden by the whole episode. And so on the way to the one meeting, I was sharing with the person that I was riding with what I had done. And not realizing that in that moment, step 4 and step 5 were alive and well in my life. Recognizing what I had done wrong, recognizing my shortcoming, recognizing my inability to exercise self-control over my emotions, and verbally blasting my family and specifically my young child, and then taking ownership for it right away, owning it in that moment and vocalizing it with another drunk, step 4 and step 5. He was able to kind of talk me down and share with me that kids are resilient. I shouldn't beat myself up about it. Tomorrow's another day. By the time I get back from the meeting, if Sarah was, willing, then he would probably still be awake watching TV with Mom, and I could make my amends then, and he'd sit up on my lap and things would be good. And he had had similar experiences with his own children. And certainly when I got home, the little guy was in bed, but by the next morning, he ate breakfast on my lap and we had a great morning. And he was 100% right. And that moment was gone and squashed by the love between a father and a son, and all had been forgiven with my wife as well. So we moved past the moment. In the grand scheme of things, just one little moment that may not mean anything to anybody else, but for me, when I jump ahead and I land in, now I'm in St. Thomas, a very similar incident happens in the new house that we're living in. And instantly I recognized it this time. Instantly I saw it for what it was. And I picked my little guy up and I sat him up on the counter in the bathroom. And with all the shaving cream still on my face, I sat Indian style. So I'm sitting on the floor, Indian style, physically looking up at my little guy, owning it with him in that moment and saying, "Hey buddy, Daddy just barked at you and I didn't mean to bark at you. You don't deserve to be barked at. I'm frustrated because I'm trying to shave and you want my attention. So I'm going to stop what I'm doing and give you all my attention." To this day, my little guy remembers that. And he's not so much of a little guy anymore. He's celebrating his birthday tomorrow, and he's a 20-something-year-old guy. 25, 26, I don't know. There's another, shortcoming of mine. But that's the point. He remembers that moment, and it stands out for him. And that's what I want to share with you guys about step 4 and step 5. By the time we get further into the steps, you'll understand how these are the things that we learn how to do. And this is what this is about. It's about taking those initial steps and bringing that initial willingness to recognize all those things that make us human. The good stuff and the bad stuff. The stuff that we could never share with a human being, and the stuff that we absolutely need to share with another human being. Because we need to recognize our humanness. We need to recognize that we're fallible, broken creatures, capable of greatness. All we have to do is just have faith. Have faith that we're going to get there. Have faith in something more powerful than us. And with that, I'm going to hit you with my last talking point. And I think it's probably one of the most important ones in all of step 5. And it comes toward the end. On page 62, step 5, and it's about halfway down the page. Speaking about the actual moment when we're starting to share with another human being. The dammed up emotions of years break out of their confinement and miraculously vanish as soon as they are exposed. As the pain subsides, a healing tranquility takes its place. And when humility and serenity are so combined, something else, a great moment, is apt to occur. Many in AA, once agnostic or atheistic, tell us it was during this stage of step 5 that they first actually feel the presence of God. And even those who had faith already often became conscious of God as they never were before. And I'm here to tell you, man, that's exactly where your faith will take root. When you're connecting with another human being. when you are sharing your brokenness with another human being, when you are willing to expose these things to the light. I am 20 minutes in, guys, and I can't believe I've babbled this long. So I'm going to say to you, it works if we work it. And this is where the work begins. I love you guys, and I'm cheering you on. Get out and have a great weekend, man. Take care.